Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me today. My name is Cdr Ian Duncan, and I run the submarine rescue system. Why am I here today? There's nothing nuclear about my rescue system, but there's one or two parallels that I thought might be useful. Carolyn, you've just heard, is looking at change in the future. This is an example of change in the recent past. The NATO submarine rescue system was an idea that was put together 10 or 15 years ago, and we worked collaboratively with France and Norway and the UK to develop a system. I want to tell you a little bit about that. I've only got 10 minutes. You'll be glad to know that 5 minutes 20 of that will be a video where we'll take you for a ride in the rescue vehicle. So I've got about 3 minutes left, hopefully. This is a quick overview of the system. The capability that we wanted to introduce into the service was the ability to rescue submariners should they be stuck on the bottom of the ocean. We're designed to rescue about 150 people from down to 610 metres. And if the submarine's pressurised up to a pressure of 6 bar absolute. So basically, if your submarine's on the continental shelf, we can rescue you. If you're off the continental shelf, you're squashed and there's nobody left to rescue. The project was initially started off as a NATO project. And the idea was it was going to be a bit like a protection racket. Each country would put some money into the kitty, and we would then be able to offer a service to all of NATO's countries. When we got to the stage where we wanted to build something, sadly, most of the countries took one step backwards, and that was just left with France, Norway, and the UK willing to contribute. So it should really be called the French, Norwegian, and UK Submarine Rescue System, but that's too much of a mouthful. So it's still called the NATO Submarine Rescue System, even though it's not really anything to do with NATO. One of the interesting facts here is that we've used a GOCO model. So it's government-owned and contractor-operated. Currently, JFD operate the system. The system was originally designed by Rolls-Royce, and many of the Tier 2s and 3s involved in the capability are here in the hall today. And it was basically derived from North Sea oil technology, so the underwater technology from the North Sea oil. And we were using commercial off-the-shelf equipment. There's nothing military about my equipment. It's not a military capability. It's purely a rescue system. We have three components to the system. The first is the remotely operated vehicle, which is a standard work-class ROV. It weighs about 2 tons. It can go down to about 900 meters, and it's got manipulators, cameras, gamma detectors, and things like that, so it can actually survey the submarine and prepare the submarine for rescue. We then have the more exotic piece, which is the rescue vehicle. And lastly, we have a transfer under pressure system, which is a set of hyperbaric chambers. And you'll see these all on the video being used in a minute. We are designed for rapid transport around the world, and we are air portable, if you describe 350 tons of kit as being air portable. In terms of the project timescale, we designed and manufactured started in 2003. We came into service in about 2008, and then being the MoD, we compete the support contracts every 5 years, and in 2015, JFD took over from Rolls-Royce. If we look into the future, our out-of-service date is 2032, and we'll be doing some subsequent contract relets in accordance with MoD policy. So in 2020, we're looking to recompete the support of the system. So if there's anybody interested, then please get in touch. In terms of the rescue cycle and what you'll see in the video, basically we will mobilise the equipment onto the back of a ship. There are around 700 ships in the world that can take us. We were designed to go on the average North Sea oil support vessel. We mobilise the equipment onto the back of the ship, and we then drive the ship to the datum, and then we start the rescue of the submariners. In simple terms, the rescue vehicle is launched into the water. If we need to pressurise the vehicle to match the pressure in the submarine, we do that on the surface. It goes down, it mates with the submarine, and you'll see that process in a minute. We then transfer the people, and they then come up to the surface, and we can then transfer them into a set of hyperbaric chambers where they can be decompressed safely. The rescue cycle is nominally about 6 hours, and we can carry about 12 people at a time. So any rescue of a large submarine, for example, a Vanguard class with 150, 160 people, would take some time. But we do work with other countries, and the Americans have got a similar size system, and we would work together on the international front to rescue anyone who needs rescuing. Who we played with, we've got this capability. We clearly don't go rescuing submarines every day, thankfully. So we have to do quite a lot of exercises to make sure that we keep our capability current. So that's just a quick sort of picture. And what that really shows you is that we've mated with 26 submarines since 2008 from a range of different countries. You'll be looking to say, well, why have we only done it once with a UK submarine and once with a French submarine? The answer is our submarines are nuclear powered. As you all know, nuclear reactors require cooling, and the nuclear submarines weren't designed to sit on the seabed. So we use a lot of conventional submarines, which is why Norway is top of the list. They've got conventional powered submarines that are quite happy to sit on the bottom of the field for a few days while we exercise with them. We also take part in international exercises, and you'll see that in a minute. That's the advantage of working internationally for us. We get the training we need without having to try and use nuclear-powered submarines, which is quite complicated. We also work with other countries. The PFP stands for Partnership for Peace, which is a NATO initiative. So we work quite a lot with Sweden, and we've even worked with Russia in the past. Where do we operate? This simple map shows where we've operated the system since 2008. So we've gone from the north of the Arctic this spring, where it was -15, down to the eastern Mediterranean this summer, where it was +38. So we've got a wide spectrum of operations. We also test the system and mobilising it in different ports, different airports, to make sure that if we're ever called for real, then we've got a real capability. I'll just take you back slightly. The film I'm going to show you it will last for 5 minutes 20. It was done by a video journalist, Ali Gibson, who works for British Forces Television. So it was done for Forces TV, so it's slightly jingoistic, and she's not a subject matter expert, although most of the facts that she does say are true. So you just have to bear it in mind. It's not a sort of it wasn't a documentary made by ourselves. It was made by Forces TV. But it gives you a really good idea of how the rescue works and what would be done for a real rescue.
Hatches closed and Nemo is ready to begin her descent. The Submarine Rescue Vehicle, or SRV, is part of the NATO submarine rescue system. She descends towards the Turkish submarine, which lays at the bottom of the seabed in distress.
We've now begun our dive in the SRV, and I'm sitting in the back in the rescue chamber. This is an underwater ambulance, and this is where, when we rescue the injured submariners, they'll come in here for treatment before being taken up to the surface and the transfer under pressure system. A few minutes away lies the distressed submarine, more than 100 metres below the surface.
If a submarine is in a collision, floods or pressurises, the situation is critical. Up to 180 metres down, submariners can escape in special immersion suits. But deeper than that, and they won't survive the ascent. Rescue vehicles like Nemo are their only chance. It must mate onto the submarine and drain the water between the two hatches.
I've got 3 cameras to position myself over the mating seat. There we go. So right over the centre here, and I'm using these 2 as well. Almost over the centre. Just using tiny movements. All the light disappears there. And I'm using these cameras, I can see my position all round. There you go. Roger.
Open. When we open the hatch for the first time, in the first run, I won't be alone. I will be with a doctor and a nurse. They are able to go into the sub to do the triage, okay, and to see some casualties with problems is, of course, I will be worried, of course.
Work doesn't stop when the SRV gets back to the surface. Inside, she could be carrying up to 12 injured submariners at any one time. She must get back safely onto the mothership that carries the full NSRS system.
The submarine's under the tow of the ship. at which point we stand by, and if all goes well, on a manual engagement, we'll put our 2 swimmers on the deck, and they basically escort the bullet into the sub. We'll recover our swimmers, and Nemo goes back into the cradle.
Back on deck, Nemo is manoeuvred carefully. The ambulance now docking with its hospital, the Transfer Under Pressure System, or TUP. This portable hyperbaric chamber can treat up to 72 submariners for decompression sickness, known as the bends, caused by an increase of atmospheric pressure in their stricken sub and nitrogen in their bodies.
When the casualty is taken from the rescue submarine, we take them into the triage area, where we'll do a quick triage of the patient. And if, like in this case, is severe injured, we'll bring him into the treatment facilities we have here.
To give a rescued submariner the best chance of survival, they will stay in the 5 pressurised chambers of the TUP system for hours, even days. They are slowly brought back to normal surface pressure. Their recovery is monitored by regular and reservist submariners and divers on high readiness to deploy.
All the operators control the chambers, so the temperature, the humidity, the depth of the chambers, and this is all controlled from in here. And if we need to, we can run different chambers at different depths, and we've got 2 legs. If we need to use a second leg, we can, and we can run a different set of tables.
The NSRS is special in many ways. The 350-ton system can be deployed worldwide by air and sea, this time travelling more than 3,000 nautical miles to the Eastern Med. It's a far cry from her last deployment. In February, the submarine rescue system exercised in -15 in the Arctic Circle, the furthest north she's ever been. Fast forward to September in Turkey, and there's 50 degrees Celsius difference.
This exercise has been a really good opportunity to operate at the different end of the spectrum. And the system was designed to operate in air temperatures up to 40 degrees centigrade, and this is the first time we've been able to test it in those sort of conditions. So it's given everybody on board a real sense of confidence, the operators, but also the submariners.
Exercise Dynamic Monarch has tested this tri-national system to see if it can cope with the Mediterranean heat and integrate with international allies. But the NATO submarine rescue system has proved ready to save submariners worldwide 24/7. Ali Gibson, Forces News, off the Turkish coast.
Good, thank you. Sorry it's so short. Obviously time is pressing today. I think what you've seen there hopefully is one of the things I didn't really have time to explain is that I have to provide the resources for the divers and the medics. So we use divers and medical teams from the 3 partner nations. In no one country do we have enough military divers or medics with the right skills to man this system. So we have to work together in a collaborative partnership. So for us, being in a partnership of 3 nations meant we were able to share the costs equally, and we also share the responsibility, and we can use the scarce resources in each of the 3 countries in order to produce a capability that is world-beating. So thank you very much for your time.